everybody, this is Red Rifle Sports and my name is Peter. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the running back free agents for this year's offseason in the NFL. Just going to be looking at who they are and what teams I think would be a good fit for everybody. First up, we have Derrick Henry. He obviously popped off at the end of last year and also in the postseason with the Titans and was a big part of the Titans' deep run in the playoffs. Now, personally, I think it would be good for him to stay in the Titans. But I think a dark horse team that could swoop in and pick him up would be the Philadelphia Eagles. I think for too long now, Wentz has been relied on too much, in Philadelphia. And I just don't think their passing game is good enough to be the main focal point of their offense. They have an okay offensive line, but they dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and I really don't think we've seen the best of the Eagles. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl a few years ago with Nick Foles coming in at quarterback for Wentz when he went down. But I think a running back like Derrick Henry to take the load of the offense would be a really good piece for the Eagles. He's not going to be cheap, though. Obviously, Henry's going to be worth a lot considering how he literally carried the Titans through the playoffs last year. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this. Henry possibly going to the Eagles, but the Eagles have lacked like a strong running game for a while now. They've tried a bunch of different pieces, but I think Derrick Henry would be great for them. Next up, we have Lamar Miller. He has had injury problems over the year. He was on the Texans most recently. He was brought in from Miami to Houston, and they really thought he could be a workhorse back and just carry the team and take the load of carries for the year. But a lot of injuries and just not enough sustainability with runs in between the tackles for Lamar Miller. I think it just shows that you really need a dependable running back just to take a bunch of carries for any team. It doesn't matter if they're really good or not. You need dependability and health at the running back position. I actually don't think anybody's going to pick him up. I think he's had too many injury concerns. He'll probably ask for more money than he's worth. Maybe he'll get picked up halfway through the season after a couple backs go down on teams already next year. But yeah, as of now, I don't see him going anywhere this offseason. Next up, Chris Thompson from the Redskins. I think there's a good chance the Redskins will just re-sign him. But I think a fun team to pick out, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys use Zeke out of the backfield with receptions and little dump down passes a little too much. I think he gets a bit too much work with the Cowboys. I think he should just be used between the tackles and for outside runs. He's great at running the ball. I don't think he's a great receiving back. That's just my opinion though. But a back like Chris Thompson that can really catch the ball out of the backfield and just find the space with blockers in front of him, I think that'd be a great pickup for the Cowboys. Next up, we have Carlos Hyde. He was brought in by the Texans last year, and he did really well. Him and Duke Johnson were kind of a two-headed horse for that backfield last year with the Texans. Johnson being more of an out-of-the-back receiving type back, and Hyde obviously more of a between the tackles, shove it up the defense's throat type back. And yeah, he did well. He popped off on some long runs. But yeah, I don't know. He's getting older. He was on the 49ers a handful of years ago. Didn't really break out then. But I think he could be a good back for a team that already has a number one back. Just to take a bit of the workload off of the number one back. I think a good team would be the Panthers. Obviously, they have McCaffrey, who really had a breakout year last year. I mean, he was already a star, but he just absolutely, destroyed defenses last year. But yeah, a back behind him like Carlos Hyde to take a good amount of carries off of his load would be great. I think he provides a bit of experience. He's not going to fumble the ball a lot. Hyde hasn't had a ton of injury problems. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Carlos Hyde go to Carolina. Next up, Melvin Gordon. Obviously, he had the weird holdout situation last year. He never got the deal he wanted. He wants to stay with the Chargers, but I think they're pretty committed to Eckler. Melvin Gordon didn't have a great year once he came back. I mean, it's not like he got the amount of, carries and receptions that he normally would in a full season. But yeah, I don't think he really lived up to how he's been recently. in years prior with the Chargers. Eckler obviously had a great year last year. So yeah, I just think he's going to want too much money. You could see a team like the Texans that have failed to get a number one back for a while. I wouldn't mind seeing Melvin Gordon and Deshaun Watson do some work in Houston. But like I said, he's going to have to take less money than he's going to be looking for. Not a lot of teams are going to be looking to shell out a bunch of money for a running back in today's game. Next up, we have Peyton Barber. He's been on the Bucs for a couple years. He just was he never lived up to what he could have been. They gave him a ton of carries a game. Him and Ronald Jones got a good amount of, pretty much split the load last year. But yeah, I remember 2 years ago, he had one of the worst yards per carry averages, and it's not like the Bucs offensive line is going to do you many favors, especially in such a pass-happy offense. But I still think it could be a viable option in the league. If you see a team like the Titans lose out on their number one, like if they lose Derrick Henry, he could go there and get a good amount of carries a game. I don't think he'll be a number one. Kind of in the way that he was at the Bucs, splitting carries with a number one, or having a two-man backfield. I don't think he's good enough for that, but he could be a good piece to, a 2-3-man backfield in most teams, or at least be a good backup. And finally, we have Kenyon Drake. He joined the Cardinals late last year, and he did well. I think he fits that offense really well with Kyler Murray. He had some good catches out of the backfield, and he's a creative player that, you just want to give him the ball. He can do a lot with the ball in his hands, and I think the Cardinals did well with that. So I'm voting for him to stay in Arizona. I think last year was a good start for Drake and the Cardinals, and hopefully all the work that they can do together in years coming. But yeah, just going over the top 6 or 7 running backs and seeing where they can go. Obviously, running backs are just becoming less and less important in today's game. But yeah, a couple of the big names: Derrick Henry, Lamar Miller, Melvin Gordon. They'll be interesting stories to keep track of throughout this offseason. And if you look at this draft class, you can't really think of many top running backs coming out and declaring for the draft. Just in the scouting reports I've done and looked at, you don't see many running backs going in the first round or even having a first round grade at all. And you look at the wide receiving core this year, it's incredibly deep. So it just shows where the league is going in terms of offense. It's really just coming down to playmaking wide receivers and playmaking quarterbacks with a solid young line, and running backs that can just be good enough. Look at the 49ers. They had Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman. Who were they a good amount of years ago? Tevin Coleman was a backup. Raheem Mostert was probably on a practice squad. So just goes to show running backs, they're not super important in today's game. But yeah, that's really all I got today, and I hope to see you guys again soon. See you.